Welcome to the Ultimate Plot Twist podcast, where each time we meet, you'll hear stories from ordinary people like me and you who have found huge blessings from the most unexpected places. Hi, I'm your host, Jen Barger. I'm a wife and a mom to two amazing kids, one of which just happens to have Down syndrome. And when we were handed this challenging and yet quite rewarding plot twist, it was the stories, the people, the recommendations from others that has helped us the most. I can't wait to learn more from these amazing people together and hope that you too walk away feeling a little more encouraged, a little more equipped, and feeling much less alone. Let's get to it. Hi, welcome to the Ultimate Plot Twist. I'm here with my husband, Dave.
Hello.
He is very reluctantly joining me here in my studio. For those of you that can see us today, we're inside of our closet. This is the only quiet room that we have. So listen, we're nervous and excited. This is episode 1 of the Ultimate Plot Twist. And today I just wanted to take a chance to interview Dave and kind of share our story. We have been married now 7 years.
7 years, yeah.
And when we got married, we very quickly knew that we wanted to have children.
Yeah.
And so it took no time at all. We were very, very blessed that way. And Amelia came along.
Yeah.
Fast and Furious Amelia.
Yes, very.
So Amelia, we actually spent 28 days in the NICU with Amelia. So I was not deemed a high-risk pregnancy other than age.
Yeah, not for that one.
Yeah. And we were sitting at the dinner table and my water broke. And I was like, it's too early. There's no way. I was how far? I never remember.
You were 8 or 6 weeks shy. So
yeah. So we spent the next 28 days with her. And so that was a pretty crazy experience for anyone who's done and had a NICU baby. It is not the easiest, but we were excited for her. Yeah. But we also knew that we wanted to have a second, or we wanted her to have a sibling as best we could. And so we waited a little over a year and a half. We got the doctor's clearance and we got pregnant and we lost that baby.
Yeah. We did.
So that baby only made it to 8 weeks. And I miscarried. So that was pretty tough. So the doctor asked us to wait a little bit longer.
2 months. Yeah.
And we tried again and we got pregnant and we were excited. And this one felt a little bit different. I don't really know why it felt different, but it did. And because Amelia had come early and we were a little bit older, they offered to give us the genetic test. Yeah. And really, we were just kind of excited to do the genetic test because it was going to allow us to find out gender.
Sex, yeah.
So I was 12 weeks pregnant and went and did the blood work and was overseas actually for a large aerospace convention in London all by myself. And I got 3 missed calls from the OB. I was like, well, that's not normal. And I called them first and they were like, well, wait just a second, Jennifer. Dr. Clary wants to talk to you, which was our doctor. And that definitely signaled that something wasn't necessarily right. And he gets on the phone and he's like, oh my goodness, you're not home. And I said, no, I'm not. He said, you're not even, where are you? And I said, well, I'm in overseas. I'm in London. And he was like, wait, you're not even here, And I was like, no. And he was like, Jen. And I said, well, now you have to tell me, what's going on. And he said, listen, I'm sorry to have to tell you this over the phone, but your genetic test came back with biomarkers for Down syndrome. And I was a wreck. I was not good.
That's when I got a call.
Yeah. FaceTime Dave. Yeah. And I knew in my heart that it was a boy. Funny enough, I asked Dr. Cleary, I said, so you got to tell me, is it a boy or a girl? And he was like, boy. And there was something about that from the day we knew he was a boy, I don't know. I always kind of felt like he was going to be here. Anyway, so I called Dave and I was really, really, really upset. Dave immediately went into everything's going to be fine.
Oh, yeah. Wow. Yeah.
Like there was no hesitation. And he said to me, okay, so if he has Down syndrome, we'll figure this out. And I just remember being like, why are you so okay? Do you remember that?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I do. I mean, it was nothing you really expected to hear. It wasn't even on my radar. Never really thought about it. And then, the news comes and you're trying to figure out, okay, what's next? What's that mean? And, so it's just kind of like there's 1,000 questions, but no answers, right? So I mean, I think the next step, we just got home. You came
Yeah,
home a
so I
couple
came home
days
the very
later.
next day.
Yeah,
Yeah,
a day or two later.
and so they immediately rushed us in to go see a special geneticist. I
Mhm.
can't remember the titles of it, but to do kind of a deeper ultrasound. So this is where they could go in and look at the baby much closer and just kind of make sure everything was okay.
Yeah.
So they spent the first hour of the appointment. I'll never forget that lady in the back room trying to like talk us down off the cliff. I mean,
Yeah,
because
we were sitting in a small room and
we were, and they were
talking
trying,
through.
yeah, like here's what it looks like to have a kiddo with Down syndrome. And I think, for any new mom that's going through, or dad going through the first hearing of it, right? Like I remember thinking some of the most terrible thoughts.
Mhm.
I remember asking that woman some terrible questions, like looking
Yeah.
back, like, does this mean that they'll never live on their own? Like that was honestly my
Yeah.
biggest fear, which is really weird,
Mhm.
but it was like, I felt it was a very selfish thought.
Yeah.
Like
Well,
that
that's just the state we were in, stage
Mhm.
we were in. So,
And then, like, does every child with Down syndrome have really complex medical conditions?
Mhm.
Like, I assumed they did.
I remember sitting in the room. They talked to us about the markers that we
Mhm.
might see, and then they talked about, I guess it was ranges of issues that you could have. You know what I mean? And there's
But hearing some of those are pretty scary.
And then
Like,
there's every one of them has a spectrum. So it was just like
Mhm.
heart issues or digestive issues
Yeah.
or whatever. And then
so we spent that
So-
full hour listening to this
Yeah.
gal, and it
Getting
was
scared.
good. I mean, yeah, getting scared. Then we go back into the room and they do the ultrasound.
Mhm.
And she came in and she was real, like she hit my belly and she got real quiet and she left really fast.
Yeah. Well, I remember the one thing they mentioned was space between
Mhm.
the head and
Nuchal
the
fluid.
skin. Yeah, the fluid that
Mhm.
might be in there.
And that was one
And
of
that
the
was
markers.
the marker. Yeah.
But we could see it.
I saw it. Yeah.
Yeah, it was
Pretty quick.
big. So Preston had massive swelling all over his body. And so that's actually what the doctor rushed in next. So I'm sitting there, I'm like, Dave, that wasn't good. And he's like, no, I didn't like how that was either. Just how quick she was. Doctor comes in, he comes back next to me, grabs my hand, and he says, Jennifer, I'm so sorry to have to be the one to tell you this, but your baby is going to die. It's
Mhm.
not a matter of if, but when.
Yeah, and I asked what percentage chance of it, and his answer was 100%.
I don't remember a lot.
No, which, I mean, knowing, just working with doctors
Now
and
that we know
nurses,
now.
they never usually say 100% anything, but he
Mhm.
was very adamant that it was 100%. And I was like, okay. So then, the thoughts are, do we have a funeral, or, how's
Yeah.
this all going to go? And
Dave says, well, is she going to be okay? Meaning me, like he was more thinking like physically, like, can she carry? And he said to Dave, he said, well, physically she'll be fine. It's mentally what she can handle.
Mhm.
And at that point I looked at Dave and I remember saying, okay, we got to go.
Yeah.
And he was like, what? I was like, we got to go.
No,
We got to get out of here.
He did offer, he said, well, you need to go to Ohio and get an abortion if you want to get an abortion. I remember
He did.
him saying that. And our answer was no. We're not
Yeah,
gonna
he was
do
like,
that.
hey, I'm sorry, I can't eliminate this pregnancy here,
Mhm.
but I could refer you to Ohio.
Yes.
And, it just, looking back, there's a lot of things from that appointment. Now I give, he then opens up about how him and his wife had gone through a whole bunch of fertility issues. And so in a lot of ways, I think he was trying to, quote, spare us, I mean, maybe. I can look back and say that now, but we left that appointment clearly devastated, right? Where I was like, no, we're not trying. Dave, and Dave's like, no, and he's looking at me like, are you okay? Like, we're just trying to figure out where we are. We get in the car and I don't know, we just started driving. And I remember looking at Dave and saying, okay, we were very quiet for a very long time.
Mhm.
And I'm crying and I'm sure you're pretty emotional. And I look at Dave and I said, we got to have a name. And Dave's like, it comes out of his fog. And I said, we need a name to pray for this baby. We need a name. And Dave paused and he said, well, I've always wanted to name my son Preston. And I was so touched because, this is where I brag on you a little bit. Like he didn't want to hold that name back. We were just told that this boy was going to die.
Mhm.
And Dave's one name for a son was Preston. I was just like, okay, his name is Preston. And he was Preston from that point on. So fast forward, we go and visit with our OB
Cleary
the very next day. And he did not love that this guy had told us 100%. And so he offers to do ultrasounds on us every other week until we could get to 20 weeks. And at 20 weeks, we could have an appointment with a second specialist.
Was it that long?
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was only 2 weeks.
No,
Okay.
20 weeks, trust me, because that's when I bought the Doppler. So I'm checking for heart rate. I promised Dave that I will only check for the heart rate at once a day. So I'm in my own personal hell, if I'm being honest. honest. Like, I'm like waiting for this baby to die. Imagine it, right? Second baby. So from 12 to 20 weeks, you're starting to show. I'm trying to hide my pregnancy.
And they said
from
if you
work.
get to 18, we would have to give birth, I believe.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
All the things. And so we're getting closer. And every time we're going into an ultrasound, I can see the swelling. We can see the swelling. Like, it's there. So things are not getting better. So we start telling people about it, finally, about 14, 15 weeks in. Family, not necessarily a whole bunch of people, but family. So at around 18 weeks, which to Dave's point was when we knew that
it was like the cutoff point.
It was the cutoff point to where I was going to have to deliver.
A miscarriage to,
At this point, I'm kind of mad at God. I don't know how you were feeling. How are you feeling?
I wasn't mad. I was, I don't know. Just trying to figure it out, I guess, just unsure what was going to happen and trying to, figure out different scenarios, what could happen. And I mean, we had a lot of people praying for us too. Once we started telling people, we sent it out. I know there were several churches praying for us and, and a lot of folks. So,
and I don't even know if we knew what to pray.
Yeah.
Right. Like, in some ways we were talking about scared to pray for him to live. Because what if he came and he had really bad complications? Pray, like, then you don't want to pray for him to die. I mean, just terrible, right? Just trying to figure it out. But I'm mad at God. Like, what are you doing? Right. Like, at this point, I'm like, either take him or give him to us. This in between was just, it didn't feel fair. I'm driving to Detroit. I'm listening to the sermon on a work trip. And this woman's pounding in it. God's word is power. It's the same God that raised Lazarus from the dead. The same God that performed all these miracles. He can do it now. And I'm getting like angrier. Like, I hear you. I've heard this. I know this. This is what makes me so crazy. And I'll never forget. So that night, I couldn't stop thinking about it because I'm mad. And I called Dave and I'm telling you about this sermon. And Dave's like, well, what's your takeaway? And I'm like, I guess that we keep praying. Like, but I'm just, and he said, well, then pray. So I got off the phone and I remember standing up in that hotel room, and he used to like to grab my belly and kind of rock back and forth as if I was holding the babies. And Preston had a pretty good little bump on him. And I remember just crying out to God, look, God, either take him, but we want him. I want him. And if you promise that God's word is power, then be that God. Like, be that God. Like, I'm, and looking back, it's kind of awful way to talk to God. But I'm like, just be that God. Like, you promise. I want him. We want him. I go home from that trip. And the very next week, we have the ultrasound with the second specialist. And I'm nervous at this point. Not even hopeful, just nervous.
Yeah. Just figuring out where we are.
So the ultrasound tech comes in and she starts scanning my belly. And do you remember? She's like, oh, guys, look, here's his little hands. Here's his feet. Oh, look, his head. Well, we're looking at him. Like, he's like, he looked like a normal baby.
Yeah, but I mean, looking at his neck, I noticed that the fluid that was there behind his head was way smaller. It really wasn't.
But there was no swelling over his head, which is what we had seen every time.
And
like, it was just a skull.
And that was the reason why the first doctor said he was going to die. It was I remember we did some research. It was like 1% of the 1% or something that would survive. And I think that's why he said 100%, because he had never seen it before where someone survived that, I guess. So
we're like, and I remember Dave said, well, how's the swelling?
Yeah.
And she grabs his chart. Do you remember this? Yeah. She grabs his chart. She looks at it. And then she looks at us. She goes, oh, guys, if this chart wouldn't have told me what you guys would have
thought of it.
Yeah.
Never would have thought that
I get goosebumps hearing it again. And we were just, in shock.
Yep.
And so the most amazing specialist walks in. Good old Southern boy from Georgia. He comes in and he's just as snarky as me. And, and I said, hey, I don't really know what is going on. He grabs my hand, just like that first specialist did, came next to my bed. And he said, well, all I can tell you is that some things in the womb can't be explained by science. And we were like, okay.
Yeah. And he said, you're going to have a normal baby. It just so happens to have Down syndrome. That's it.
And that was it.
So it wasn't, and then we said, so he's going to be fine. He's going to live. He's like, yeah, he's going to be fine. Because we need to do some tests whenever, right beforehand and right after for
and he had some holes in his heart that he didn't love in the beginning, but everything, guys, everything from the holes in his heart that we were scared about, anything that we saw in the womb, gradually over time, we saw them heal. And as he came into this world, he needed some oxygen, gradually came off. Guys, we were in the NICU. So Preston comes on a snowy night in January and he comes fast and furious, which is very his personality. And that's a whole story for itself. I will just say that when he got here, we stayed less than 2 weeks in the NICU.
It was 8 days.
We went into, 8 days. We went home with oxygen. And that has been, there's been some things going on. Don't get me wrong. Like, there's typical stuff, and we'll share these in other episodes, but Preston's alive.
Yeah. And great.
And great.
Yeah.
So this plot twist in your life, how has it changed you?
Man. First, I never thought I would have a child with, I call it special needs, but I mean, I don't feel like he has special needs. He's, there's a little bit of difference, obviously, between Amelia and him, but I think it made me more patient because, I'm just not necessarily a patient person. It makes you more patient and just working with somebody and letting them work out his feelings. I guess more empathetic. I felt like I was empathetic before, but
a different type of empathy.
Yeah, a little more different type of empathy. And just kind of letting him be him and not really worrying about what other people think. That's the other thing. I think you can get into that whole,
the milestones,
here's my perfect world, and it's not going to be perfect, and how does that work, and how does that look? And I just decided at the beginning to treat him like a normal kid, like not thinking, it's like that there's Down syndrome and it's going to do something different. It's just treat him like a normal person, hold him accountable like a normal person, try to get him to do what he needs to do as a normal person. And it's just more empathetic, not feeling like I need to be perfect or things need to be perfect. And, I'm just going to live life, and it is what it is. Yeah.
For me, it's definitely re-snapped my priority line. And I'm a very driven person, right? Very driven, to the point of probably to a fault. And if anything, Preston has shown me that everybody's good is different. I would have told you before that you had to be the best. Like, the line had to be here. Yeah. And I've come to appreciate that everybody's line for amazing and best is not always here. And that's still great. Yeah. Yeah. It just doesn't look the same. Yeah. It's helped me in that competition, that inner competition, both on myself and my kids. I think it's definitely helped me as a mom.
Yeah.
What advice do you have for the new dad, whether it's prenatal or at birth, that just learned their kid has Down syndrome? What's some of the first things that comes to mind?
I'm usually a negative person. I mean, that. I mean, most of it's always what's the worst thing that can happen.
Cynical.
But I would say, for anybody that has a diagnosis, just wait and see, because you really don't know. So the one thing I will tell you not to do, which is what Jen did a lot of, is do a lot of research online, because you can get anything you want to see, right? I mean, it could be the best and the worst, and it doesn't necessarily apply to what's going on with your child. So I would just say, don't dwell on a bunch of online stuff.
Be careful with the research.
Yeah. I would just, if you're doing research, just do very basic, what it is, what Down syndrome is, that kind of stuff. Not everybody's story, because everybody's story is different. So I just stayed positive and said, hey, it's, if God gave us him because we weren't supposed to have him, that we thought, then it's going to be fine. So we'll just figure it out as we go. And that's what we're still doing right now. It's just one step at a time. So as things go, you just, figure it out. There's nothing we're going to change. And I guess that's the biggest thing, is you can't change that stuff. So might as well just deal with it. Just deal with what it comes.
That's so your personality. I also would say to the mom and dad, for that matter, is that the grieving process is real.
Yeah.
What I mean by that is, it's something that was shared with me early, that I needed permission to grieve, right? So you almost need to grieve the loss of the expectations that you had before.
Yeah, that's true.
So that you no longer have them going forward, right? It is a very real process. To people not walking through it, it might sound a little harsh, but like, I needed to grieve the life for my child that I thought he would have, and let new expectations come in. And then it's okay to be sad, and it's okay to feel all those feelings. They will go away. Like, I remember telling Dave all the time, I just want to feel excited about Preston, because there was a long moment of fear. Like, I was terrified, of how his life was going to be different, or mine, or, could we be the parents he needed? Of course we were going to be, but it took a little bit to get to that other side.
Yeah. It just takes time. I mean, and a lot of it, you can't, if you find out at 12 weeks and you got to go 9 months, it's 6 months goes, really slow. It feels like, I guess it's because you're just wondering and trying to figure it out, what's going to happen, what's happening right now, what are we going to do when he's born? So, you can worry, but there's no sense in worrying that much until they're born too. Yeah. So don't get yourself too worked up, I guess.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, I try not to. I try to keep you calm in that situation, which, like I said, normally I'm negative. So But in that situation, I just try to stay positive and say there's nothing we're going to change at the moment. So we just need to really take everything one step at a time.
And I will tell you now, I know that some of you are listening or watching that don't have a Dave, or you don't have a Jen, right? You're doing this thing by yourself. My heart is with you. Make sure you're reaching into community. There's so many amazing groups where they're supporting each other, Down syndrome groups meaning, or other special needs. I know there's a lot of circles. I don't take it for granted that we talk like this, like we, and he was here for me and I was here for him. Like that's not everybody's story. You know, if anything, just know, I mean, we're here. We want to be a resource. If you have questions, we're happy to reach out and have conversations with anyone wherever you are in that phase. And like Dave said, though, we're still trying to figure it out ourselves. Like it's not perfect. Okay. Last thing. What's your favorite thing about Preston?
Man.
So Preston's 4 now.
Yeah. I would say a sense of humor is my favorite thing. He's just funny and he knows he's entertaining. And when he does it and you get tickled, he even goes further and further with it. So that's probably my favorite thing. And that he's a good snuggler for sure. He loves to snuggle.
He does love to snuggle. I love that Preston is a good read of people. You know, I think there are some stereotypes about kids with Down syndrome. One is that they're always happy, and they are not, just to be clear. That's not true. But one thing that I think is kind of cool is I want to believe that God gives them a gifting of kind of reading of hearts. You know, so that they're not put in dangerous situations. Preston's a good read of people. I love watching him kind of read, or like pick somebody in the room that you would never have thought a kid would feel comfortable with. And Preston's like, that's my person. I'm going to go give him a high five.
Pick me up.
You know, so I think that's really awesome.
Okay. Yeah, he's very social too. It's really funny. Going to a public place, he's waving, high-fiving, and tapping people on the back and all that stuff. So it's awesome.
Is there anything else you would say to the new parent?
It's not. It doesn't always have to be as bad as you think it's going to be.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, it's
every day. It's you learn something new, and I'm just very happy that we have him. You know what I mean? It could have been a whole different world. Just thinking about it now, not having him around would be a totally different life right now for me. And just I think we're blessed to have him.
So back to full circle moment, and then we'll close this out. So sometimes I wonder, you know, why did God give us that 8-week period? You know, what was it? And so what I would tell you is, for us personally, I know it was refinement so that we could get to a place of saying we wanted him. If you're feeling all the feelings, it's normal, but we're excited to explore more of you, more of our people in the community. I can't wait to share some of these amazing people with you. Dave, thanks for being here. And I didn't really want to do this. Not because he didn't want to share Preston, but this is not his gig.
It's my thing.
And I look forward to talking to you guys next time.